Good afternoon, everyone. We'll be starting in a few minutes. I can see in the chat a few people are asking whether there's a problem with the sound, but we hadn't started yet, but just give us 2 minutes and we'll start the program. Thank you. So good afternoon once again, and welcome to the 6th Tax Roundtable. As we wait for everyone to join, I will ask if we can have the slide on the ground rules. We can be setting the stage using the ground rules as we wait for the CEO of KEPSA to join us shortly. Please remember to mute when you're not speaking, and currently the participants, you might not be able to put on your microphone, but we encourage you to use the chat section so that we can collect all the issues that you have during this period. And then respect each other and the moderator who will be keeping time. And when you speak, please keep your points clear and succinct. Please share specific questions via chat, as I had said before, and we will pick them and respond during the plenary session. And if you want to address your question at somebody, please state their name. So these are our ground rules as we begin the session. My name is Grace Wandera, and I'm the Deputy Commissioner, Marketing and Communication at KRA. Welcome to the 6th Roundtable. This is following our 5th Tax Roundtable, which was held in April 2019. So clearly we have a lot of issues to discuss today, and we are looking forward to having a robust engagement with you. I'd just like a confirmation from KEPSA if we are ready to start from your end, if probably I could get some confirmation, please. So as we wait for the confirmation, just maybe to take all of us through the program, we will have opening remarks from our Commissioner General, Mr. Githi Mburu. We will also have opening remarks from Ms. Martha Cheruto, who's the Deputy CEO at KEPSA. And then we'll delve into the presentation of the issues that the sector has collected. This will be led by Mr. Ashif Kasam, who's the Vice Chair, the Finance Sector Board of KEPSA. We will then follow these with a reaction to the presentation that will be made, and various commissioners and deputy commissioners shall be giving responses to the issues that will have been raised. and then we will move into a plenary session. I want us to remember again, please ensure that you're sending us your questions through the chat function so that we can be collecting them, and then we will go through them during the plenary session. And then finally, we will have a closing and way forward and close the session. We would like to run this for about 2 hours, so we're looking forward to keeping time and ensuring that we close at least by 4:40. So thank you, and now we're just still waiting for some confirmation from the KEPSA team.
Yeah, this is Ashif from the KEPSA team. I think they're just waiting for Martha to come on board. So just give us about 2 minutes.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ashif.
I can see Martha is now on board.
Thank you very much. Welcome, Ms. Martha Cheruto. We will now officially begin our program, and we will go straight into the opening remarks. And we will start with the opening remarks from the Commissioner General, Mr. Givi Mburu, who will also take the opportunity to introduce the team that will be representing KRA. Welcome, Commissioner General. CG, you're muted.
Thank you, Grace. So good afternoon, members of KEPSA and KRI staff and other distinguished guests. Welcome to this session. Before I make my remarks, I would like my team who are on board to introduce themselves and say what they do. Quickly, Grace.
Thank you. We'll start with Commissioner Domestic Taxes, the representative of Commissioner Domestic Taxes.
Yes, my name is Caxton Masudi Ngeiwa. I'm Deputy Commissioner in charge of Policy and Tax Advisory in this meeting representing Commissioner Domestic Taxes. Thank you.
Commissioner Customs.
Pamela, you are muted.
Good afternoon. My name is Pamela Ahago. I'm the Acting Commissioner of Customs and Border Control. I'm in charge of operations of customs, handling areas of imports, exports, and any other trade facilitation issues in regard to customs operations. Thank you.
Next will be Commissioner Strategy.
Okay, Mohammed Omar, Commissioner for Strategy. The department is involved with strategic planning, research, policy, knowledge management, data management, and risk management. Thank you.
Commissioner Intelligence and Strategic Operations.
Good afternoon, all. I'm Tera Saidimu. I'm the one in charge of intelligence and strategic operations. We deal with tax evasion schemes. We also deal with matters integrity. Thank you very much.
Commissioner Kesra.
Good afternoon, all. My name is Dr. Fred Mugambi. I'm the Commissioner in charge of the Kenya School of Revenue Administration, KESRA.
Commissioner Investigations.
Do we have a representative for Commissioner Investigation?
Yes, we do. Dr. Karanja.
Edward, you are muted. I think we go to another one.
Commissioner Corporate Support Services.
Do we have a representative for the Commissioner Corporate Support Services?
I think he hasn't joined us, so I think that's the team that is current.
So Grace, is that all for the team that we have? We can proceed?
Yes, we have other members who will be introducing themselves as they make the presentation.
Maybe at this point, before we make the remarks, we can have KEPSA introduce their key officials.
Good afternoon, everybody. This is Martha Cheruto. I'm the Deputy CEO, Kenya Private Sector Alliance. With us, we have our members, and from our leadership,
Cheruto, you are muted.
I've said Ashif is the Vice Chair of the Public Finance Sector Board.
Hi everybody. I'm Ashif Qasim.
Good to see you, Ashif.
You too, Commissioner.
And Commissioner General, allow me also, we have Mushai Kuniha, who's our chairman of the Kenya Association of Manufacturers. He's one of our leaders. He can introduce himself.
Good afternoon, Commissioner. Good afternoon, everyone. Glad to be here, and thanks for the opportunity to engage.
Yeah, good to see you, Mushai.
Thank you. Yeah.
Mother, anybody else?
Commissioner, we also have our team from our side. Our team from our leadership, I think I would recognize the two for now. Thank you. Back to you.
Thank you very much and welcome on board. I want to start by making a few opening remarks. First, I am delighted to dialogue with you during this 6th roundtable, Tax Roundtable. The Tax Roundtable, as you are all aware, is a forum that enables us to engage with our critical stakeholders. This concept came in to facilitate this kind of dialogue so that we identify the issues that affect us in terms of our operations, both from the business point of view and from the revenue administration. And the idea is that once we identify these issues, then we work together as a team towards resolving these issues. I know we'll be delving into some of the issues we have been we identified earlier, including in the last in the 5th round table. But allow me to mention that I believe we have made significant progress through this platform. Because I know last year we made a record payment of refunds to the tune of 26 billion Kenya shillings. That is the highest ever done in one financial year. This year, we are also looking forward to being able to facilitate businesses by paying about 25 billion again Kenya shillings. And this is as much as this will represent all the funding which are received from the National Treasury. Looking at how refunds have been emerging, we can say that we have seen a very strong buildup of refunds driven by policy, and also looking at the backlog that we have had over the years. And we believe that we can continue dialoguing in this area so that then together we are able to engage the National Treasury to be able to give us additional funding to be able to conclude this refund processing and payments. We looking at the current level of buildup, which is about 5 billion shillings a month. And the funding that I have already mentioned, about 25 billion, it looks like we would end up with another backlog at the end of the year of about 30 billion. So through this engagement, I believe we can together reach out to the National Treasury and see how we can get additional funding, to see how we can reduce this backlog and provide businesses with the much needed cash, given the current environment. As you can see, we are now dialoguing through the virtual platforms. And I'm sure all of you know why we are doing this. I also wish to encourage all of you to remain safe because we all need one another, even as we continue with these engagements. So we have also observed something that I would like to draw to your attention. I know the details will come through discussions. We have observed that we are disallowing about 40% of refunds. This is very, very high. And this kind of rejection of refunds is arising because a good number of claimants are just claiming refunds that are not supported. I believe we shall continue engaging in this so that we see how we address that problem. But as KRA, we shall continue tightening our controls to ensure that government does not lose money where it doesn't need to do so. Looking at the area of trade facilitation, I'm aware that you're aware that KRA has been investing heavily in businesses, in technology. And in this area, we have continued to improve our systems. And I'm happy to report that some of the challenges that we encountered, systems challenges that caused delays in refund processing, have already been addressed. And we are looking forward to a very good process moving forward in terms of expediting the settlement of refunds. We have also recently launched our mobile platform we call the M-Service to ensure that then we are able to reach as many taxpayers as possible through the phone. We are also launching what we are calling iWhistle, which is a platform that is going to enable taxpayers and the general public to report instances of any kind of corruption, demand from our staff, and also any forms of tax evasion. We will shortly be launching that platform, and which ensures that the reporters remain anonymous if they choose, but if they want to reveal their identity to us for the purposes of processing any payment that may arise from the taxes that we shall recover from that process, then they will do so. I believe that's a platform that is going to help us in terms of improving our ability to serve the public and even to serve you as taxpayers. We have continued to tighten our borders and even to facilitate the businesses in terms of movement of cargo, where we have invested heavily in the electronic seals to ensure that then businesses are able to have their cargo tracked electronically from the ports of Mombasa and Nairobi all the way to the export countries or to the transiting countries. So I believe that this is going to help us in terms of easing the issue of monitoring of cargo, in ensuring that we do not have dumping of cargo. When goods are dumped into the economy, they create what we call unfair competition. And therefore, we have businesses that are genuinely paying taxes, not being able to move their goods. And this has very negative impacts to businesses. So we are working very hard to ensure that we do not have smuggling, we do not have dumping of cargo, so that then businesses can reap from their investments. We have continued to enhance our cargo scanning, and right now we are in the process of procuring extra scanners so that all our land borders have scanners, so that our officers do not have then to offload all the goods at the point of entry to check whether there is something that has been concealed or misdeclared. So we are in that process of acquiring scanners, and I believe this is going to go a long way, ladies and gentlemen, in terms of trade facilitation. So I believe we shall have more engagement moving forward in terms of this forum today, so that we can pick up other issues that we need to deal with. But from our end, we are committed, very, very committed to ensuring that we facilitate businesses with the full understanding that it is when businesses perform well and they thrive, then we are able to collect the taxes that we need. So this is a very important symbiotic relationship. So we shall continue working together. And I believe that out of this engagement, we should be able to develop some resolutions and some work plans that are going to help us on the way forward. Ladies and gentlemen, allow me to end there in the interest of time. I thank you very much. Grace?
Thank you very much, CG, for your remarks. And now I'd like to welcome Madam Martha Cheruto to give the opening remarks on behalf of KEPSA. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you, CG. It's a pleasure to meet all of you online. And we appreciate the members that have joined us, the leadership of KEPSA, the leadership of KRA, led by you, Commissioner General, and everyone who's just joined in to participate in this meeting. Before I did, and to inform you of the team that has been dealing with your team from your side, we have Patrick Maingi, who's our PPD specialist, and also Emmanuel Ochieng, who is the sector leader. He's our coordinator for the sector board and public finance. So those are the teams that have been engaging closely with your team, and having Ashif Kassam and Dr. Habil Olaka, and we also have Eva Warigia, who have been part of it. So from our end, Commissioner General, we truly say asante sana for we are hosting the 6th Tax Roundtable between KEPSA and KRA. And it has been interesting that we have, this is the 6th one and it's the first one to have it online. So we do appreciate the engagements that we've had since the inception, that was in 2016. And we have made remarkable progress over the tax environment and also improving the overall ease of doing business environment. So one, we know that Kenya has ranked in the World Bank's Ease of Doing Business report. We were positioned 56 in 2020 from 108 in 2016, while the paying taxes indicator has improved from position 101 to 94. And therefore, we now continue to engage more frequently on emerging issues from the technical level to the commissioners, to the Commissioner General, and also at the board level, where we know we'll be having our meeting soon with your board. As we had said earlier, and you also indicated that this is indeed a unique forum that we're having it virtually. And at the same time, it comes during a period when we are experiencing a pandemic. So therefore, we commend the government for coming in and moving in with speed to cushion the businesses through the various economic stimulus measures that were presented, and also commend KRA for your prompt implementation of the same. Currently, we can say we are well facilitated, and we believe that we'll continue and we can continue paying taxes to keep the economy in a situation whereby government and the private sector engage. So Commissioner General and ladies and gentlemen, when the Tax Amendment Act 2020 and the Finance Act 2020 was sent to, KRA reached out to us. And this was in light to enlighten us on the general tax changes and ensure that we are all compliant with the law. Further, in partnership with KRA, we have had sector tax dialogue forums to discuss the newly legislated digital service tax, where we also involve the legislators and the National Treasury to understand both sides of the coin of the new law. And Commissioner, we can say that these engagements and even that discussion always puts us in a situation where we understand where do you come from and where do we come from and get a common standing. So we have also engaged your team on issues affecting the manufacturing sector, like the accessible goods management system, and also the excess duty changes. We've also had our renewable energy sector engaging your team and to ensure that there is clarity on the specific taxation requirements that affect the sector. Recently, that is, and I believe you're aware through your team, we had our tax task force under the Public Finance Sector Board, which I've mentioned is led by Dr. Habil Olaka, advised by Ashif Kassam, and also we have Eva Wairigia, the engagement team, the technical team, and they shared insights on the solutions to the tax administration hurdles that the private sector experiences. And all this has created a collaborative and facilitative approach to addressing the stakeholder concerns. Therefore, CG and ladies and gentlemen, would like to recognize and appreciate the progress that has been made in payment. 25 billion was paid by June 30th, and we're aware of the extension of the increase of the monthly VAT refunds from 1.2 to 1.7 billion. And we believe that this is indeed a step in the right direction. And we're still continuing to advocate for increase in the money to ensure that the claims are paid in a timely manner or netting off from other taxes. In addition, some of our members from the project that started recently on the Green Channel, we have seen our members who have benefited, allowing direct release of cargo after scanning which has helped in ensuring faster and efficient logistics during the COVID-19 crisis. Therefore, ladies and gentlemen, and Commissioner General, finally, we want to say that the COVID-19 pandemic has deeply affected businesses and that we have seen globally, not only locally, but then we look forward to creating a strategy after this meeting that will ensure we'll still support the businesses as well as promote tax compliance. We also have the opportunity as private sector to leverage on the reduced taxes as an incentive to increase the economic growth and bring more businesses or individuals. It's just appreciation from our side, from the leadership, from our members, and we're happy majority are here. And also the public, we're looking forward to a fruitful discussion. And at this juncture, I would wish through grace, we do have our Vice Chair, Ashif Kassam, who will come in and give you our proposals and also our solutions that will be forming part of our discussion today. So thank you very much, and we look forward to interactive session. We'll be available to take up the questions. And again, we give our commitment as KEPSA to the KRA team that we are available to work together for the future of this country and the global community. Thank you very much. Back to you, Grace and Ashif.
Thank you very much, Martha. And we'll just go straight into the presentation from Mr. Ashif Kassam. So I'd ask the team if you could project the proposals so that we can go into that session. Welcome, Ashif.
Thank you. Thank you, Grace. Thank you, Commissioner General. Emmanuel, are you sharing the screen or do you want me to share mine?
Kindly, Ashif, go ahead and share your screen. Thank you.
Okay, just give me a minute and let me get it out. Just a minute. But while I'm doing that, I think, Commissioner General, I want to, support your remarks, especially around the anti-counterfeit and, dumping. I think those are very critical issues affecting this country. And the faster that, we can stop some of these bad practices, it would be great. But I think just one issue that comes around that is the whole issue around that, when we are trying to stop the bad boys, there's also the inefficiency that is coming in terms of delivery to the tax compliant taxpayers. And I think one of the challenges recently is getting some, answers on straight questions or other things where, the admin time is really taking long. And I think the administration process and the streamlining of it is becoming critical. And I think one thing that when we started the weekly updates at KEPSA on COVID, one thing that kept on coming up is the tax challenges that the private sector was having. And there was not a week that, a tax challenge did not come up during the COVID updates. So what the KEPSA board did is that the thought is that we need a dedicated team of people to just look into the administrative challenges, both from an operational point and from the tax acts that are there that are affecting taxpayers. And so there is a small group that was formed to look into that, which I chair with Nikhil Hira from Bowman's. We have Cairo Tuo, and then we have Hilary Onami from ISPAC. So the four of us really sit with the KEPSA team just to look at the administrative challenges. And we actually met with your team on the 20th of August, where we had a long dialogue with about nearly a 25-page document with all the administrative challenges. And what I'll do today is just look at some of the key aspects that, are important. But just before I proceed, there is one more point. I'm one of the persons who is really for these consequences of reporting, and where people have complained, they can report tax non-compliances. But as a tax practitioner, I also realize that some people are using that just to, because they've got some problem with their employer and the reporting is not correct. So when you're launching that program, while there could be incentives for such kind of reporting, I think one part of the marketing should be that, there is also consequence for wrong reporting or something. So, it doesn't waste the taxpayers' time and also KRA's time. So any reporting is really factual. And if there's factual reporting, it's fine. If you are going after non-tax compliant people, that's fine. So I think the first issue that we'll start with, Commissioner General, with your approval, is the issue of VAT refund. So I think there are three real, difficulties in the VAT refunds. The first is a lack of prioritization system to pay the refunds. And I think you alluded to it, that this is a dialogue that we also need to have with the Treasury in terms of adequate allocation. But the second part is also that there is no transparency. So there is no proper queuing process. So when refunds, when a refund application comes in, some of the refund applications are audited, some are not audited, and it's very difficult for the taxpayer to know where he stands in the queue. The second part is that once the refund application has been approved, there is no clear transparency of how those amounts are paid. So there are people who have 3 years whose audit has been done. They've got a letter confirming the approval for the payment, but they've not been paid. Yet there are some people who are paid, and their refund payments are pretty current. So I think that transparency, both in the approval process or the audit process and then the payment process, is critical. The second thing is that there are a number of tax refund applications which are prior to the iTax platform. And though people have submitted the refund application, these are not being processed. And the constant reason that is being given is that these are not on iTax, and iTax is being configured. But it's nearly 2 years since this is happening, and this is really putting some of these people in financial difficulty. And the third point around the VAT refund is, there was this formula where you're supplying standard rated goods and zero rated goods, and there's a formula that is proposed in the VAT Act and then the regulations around it. The problem is that there is a technical issue with the formula that has also been escalated, because generally if you're supplying fully either zero rated goods or wettable goods, technically the refund, everything that is there should be refunded. And I think that formula is causing a lot of problems, and it would be good if the teams can meet jointly to really look at that and try and resolve it. So I think some of the recommendations are that we should have a clear process and time frame of processing VAT refunds. The second is all tax transfers and other iTax account should be regularized within 30 days of that complaint being lodged. And the third is that KRA, to resolve the technical issues, especially for the manual claims, that are not being processed. So I think those are the three critical points in this area. The second one was the excise tax refund for industrial kerosene. I think there was a proposal in 2016 to do that. And even though the iTax portal is operational, okay, there is a issue around these refunds have not been processed, and currently manufacturers estimate that they are owed about 350 million shillings, which is very critical, especially in the paint industry, which is facing real competition from Egypt and India, which control a big chunk of the imports into Kenya. So that is something that needs to be looked into and addressed as part of this. The third is the VAA, and I think the VAA has two issues. One is the issue around taxpayers being told to justify whether the suppliers themselves have declared that output VAT, and it's becoming very difficult for individual people to go out and the real issue is that this is really a compliance issue around KRA, and it's really KRA's responsibility. And a lot of the private sector players feel that KRA is now moving this responsibility to the taxpayer, who really don't have expertise or don't have that mechanism to check what a supplier is doing. And in fact, there was somebody who says that if the taxpayers have to do that, then KRA should give them 2% of the tax that that they are checking, instead of KRA keeping it, because, the administrative cost of doing this is becoming very difficult. And even, for a small firm like ours, which is an audit firm, which doesn't have so much input VAT, we have difficulty in ensuring compliance. So people in manufacturing sector, which have got hundreds of invoices, really have a difficulty around this. So really the matter of reconciliation between the buyer and seller should rest with the revenue authority, and the taxpayers really should not be responsible for the parties, for the actions of third parties. And I think this is something that we need to look at in terms of the administrative responsibility. The other is migration of balances from the legacy ITEX to the current from the legacy system to ITEX, and I think there are a lot of payments that are not moving across, and some queries are dating back to 1992 when the various acts require that you only maintain records for 5 years. But the biggest difficulty here is that even when the information is supplied and taxpayers are supplying the reconciliation, nothing happens. Things go quiet. And so generally process is, you want a tax compliance certificate, you're told that the following taxes are payable, you submit all the documents to KRA. Based on that, the tax compliance certificate is processed, and then the whole thing goes quiet. The movements are not done. And the next time again, the tax compliance certificate comes in, the documents have to be submitted over and over again. And I think it's becoming very difficult that there is no time frame involved. But more than the time frame, there is no escalation process, that if somebody is not doing the work, is there a process within KRA where these things could be escalated to a second level, so that once that escalation is done, the issue is resolved faster. And I think that will also bring some accountability, in the whole issue of the reconciliation and cleaning up the tax ledgers. And I think the proposed intervention is really adherence to the section 23(1)(c) of the TPA. And in some cases, if they are huge balances, can there be a process where external verifiers or auditors are allowed to verify this and report to KRA, so that the issue can be fast tracked? But the last part is also having a time frame, that if something is not done within 30 days, any letter is not responded within 30 days, there is an escalation mechanism that helps to resolve these processes quickly. And that will also save time for KRA, and that will also save time for the taxpayers. I think this is a similar point, non-recognition of prior year overpayment. In a lot of cases, they are prior year overpayments, but they are not being moved to current year. And I think up to 2 years ago, KRA had introduced on ITEX the credit vouchers, and they proved very good, because once you submitted your return, there was a credit voucher that you could move and offset it against the current year tax. Again, those credit vouchers are suspended. So again, the process of applying for the transfer is taking very long. And the ITEX platform should really have downloadable data packs, that cater for clients to include overpayments from prior period to current period, and also again re-enabling the credit voucher system, so that this can be moved. But not only across one tax. There are a lot of people who don't want VAT refunds. If a refund is confirmed, they would rather even use it against payment of other taxes, customs or income tax, and that will reduce the burden of having this constant aspect of refunds. And I think the offset of taxes is the other thing that worked very good under the old KRA Act. The provision worked well, but I think with the removal of that provision, the offset of tax, confirmed overpayments against another category of tax is proving very difficult. And I think that would solve part of the bigger issue that people are having on refunds of taxes. On the excisable goods management system, the EGMS, I think the more issue is that while this system is good, and its aim is to combat illicit trade and enhancing tax collections, I think there are a lot of administrative challenges. The first is obviously that there's continuous high imposition on manufacturing sector to sustain the tax base. So I think one of the issue is the moving to indirect taxes, but it's all on the manufacturing sector, which is already suffering from high electricity costs and other costs, and it's making this sector more uncompetitive. Okay. Secondly, manufacturers are asked to absorb the cost of setting up and running the system, both from a capex and opex point of view. And then there are key concerns that are relating to duplication of stamp systems, despite existing government stamp systems in place, which is really causing delays in the issue of the stamps, in terms of the coloring and all the technical aspects that go with it. So I think the two proposals are: one, amend the legal notice to allow some a full waiver or refund of the capex and opex costs, and secondly, there has to be a resolution of all operational concerns, which is, I think, a theme that you will see right across everything, that there is no escalation mechanism within the system. The other part is consolidation of exporters. I think if you want to really increase exports, sometimes, in the flower industry, in the tea industry, in the coffee industry, there are some smaller players who can't export themselves. So there are consolidators who come in. And the problem is that what the consolidators are being told, that it's a consolidator who is exporting, while the individual farmers are actually supplying locally. Okay, and that is increasing the cost. And a new section really needs to be introduced under the East African Customs Management Act to really provide for consolidators, so that each consignment really has clear identification of who the people are, and that is then used to say that these farmers are exporting, and that will really smoothen the process of exports going outside. I think withholding VAT refunds, there was a provision, to change the law that gave a period of 36 months to allow for the claim. However, there are issues in ITEX that is not allowing it. So again, while the 36 months is running, the ITEX has not been configured to allow for that claim. And this is the same thing like the other manual claims. So again, the fast tracking of the configuration of the ITEX system to allow taxpayers to lodge claim within the 36 months, and also the revision of Section 17 of the VAT Act to allow taxpayers more time to lodge claims for the 36 months prior to June 2019. I think those are two critical issues, and this is because of the system challenges. The other is the issue of the effective implementation of the value-added tax on petroleum products. And I think here the issue is that oil marketers are now required to issue receipts at the retail pump level. But given the nature of the transaction at the fuel station, this is really, proving very difficult and challenging. And this is a long outstanding issue, and I think we really need to sit down as private sector and the KRA to have a more effective implementation of how this can work. And also, the KRA then needs to issue accounting guidelines, guidelines on accounting of VAT, so that the industry can follow this. This has been discussed earlier by the petroleum sector with the KRA, but there is no resolution around it. Then the other aspect is the waiver of interest and penalties. And I think on behalf of the private sector, we would like to, thank the Treasury and KRA for introducing the amnesty. I think the 5-year period is well covered. So, people, where there are genuine errors can, declare the amnesty. But there are two other points that I think, KRA could consider. The first one is that there are a lot of people who set up businesses, who have not run businesses before, and after the business is mature, they actually come to find out that there were some gray areas that didn't comply with, and there is no proper formal system of voluntary disclosure of tax. And I think if there is a proper voluntary disclosure, a lot of people would come as and when they realize that there are challenges, and disclose that voluntary. And we are not saying that there is no penalty or interest. There could be a small penalty that you pay, but then interest is waived. So that whole process could become a normal mechanized system of voluntary disclosure. But the second part is that where audits are being carried out and there is an assessment, principal tax is paid, there is no proper process of waiver of interest and penalty. So application is made and then the whole thing just goes into abeyance and nothing comes out of it. So again, there should be a process through which, application for waiver of penalties and interest should be de-linked. So, taxpayer is allowed to submit an application even if another tax set has not been cleared. And in case of voluntary disclosure, there could be a penalty payable, where there would be a full waiver of interest. That would actually, encourage the whole process of waiver of interest and penalties. And the other thing, there is inconsistency. Uh, there are times that somebody has asked for a waiver of interest and penalties. You get a letter saying it's 20%, 80% waived. On a similar case, somebody has got another letter saying, hey, only 20% is waived, so you pay 80%. So the formula is also not very clear apart from the time frames. And I think the transparency about this waiver is very critical. The next challenge is private rulings or, tax, opinions. There are a lot of gray areas, in any tax system. And the aim of the private sector is to comply. But, if the gray area is clarified, then, things could be, much better dealt with. And, about 2-3 years ago, the whole issue of getting clarifications on tax issues was much more faster. But over the last 2-3 years, it's really taking a long time to get clarifications. And, by law, if there's a private ruling, there's a 60-day time frame to respond, but that's really not adhered to. And in a lot of cases, taxpayers are unable to proceed with, administrative aspects of whether to, or also start, whether we should go with this or not go with this transaction, is not clear at that time. So I think the first thing is that there should, be adherence to the time frame. And the other part is there should also be a one-on-one meeting between KRA and the technical team. So between the taxpayer and the technical team. So both, parties can present their views before these are issued. Because in some cases, especially recently, a lot of the private rulings are actually against this, what is in the law, or what has been ruled by a high court and it's not under appeal. So this is becoming very difficult, for the taxpayers to see which side or what will be the tax consequence of the transaction that they are going into. The other part, with all these administrative challenges, is really the establishment of a dedicated help desk, for the, micro and small, medium-sized enterprises, which would really, create efficiency in terms of better stakeholder, delivery, but also, trying to reduce the gray areas that are in law. And I think this is very critical, especially with the number of small businesses that are being registered on a day-to-day basis. The only way we can make them tax compliant is really to hold their hands in a transparent environment where their queries are resolved. And the last part, I think this is coming very clearly, is that there is no accountability when issues are raised. And, when taxpayers are going to their own, relationship manager, there's a lot of movement of relationship manager. There is no time frame within which things are handled. So there are no, KPIs, and there's no escalation process. And so this is one area that, we can look together and see what should be escalation process that, makes it easier for, issues that are pending to be resolved, but also some sort of accountability and KPI within a time frame within which, letters or queries should be answered. So I think those are some of the overall, points. There is a much bigger document that Commissioner General, that your team has, which is nearly 25 pages, explaining in much more detail some of these rationale that have come from the private sector. So over to Martha and Grace.
So thank you very much, Ashif, for that very comprehensive presentation. We confirm that we have received the proposals that are in the presentation that you've made. And I think it's really good that it gives us a moment as KRA to reflect on the issues that you have raised and also to enable us to improve in various areas. So we will be going into a session where we will be dealing with the issues that you've raised, and various members of the KRA team will be giving responses to the issues raised. But before we go forward and through the chair, I would like to ask two of my colleagues who've just joined us, Commissioner Legal and Dr. Karanja, to introduce themselves, and then we will delve into the giving the responses for the issues raised. So Commissioner Legal. Commissioner?
Maybe.
I guess he's not, sorry, maybe he's having a challenge with his connection. So Dr. Karanja, are you able to introduce yourself?
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I'm Edward Karanja, representing Commissioner Investigation. We are charged with the responsibility of ensuring that there is confidence in the tax system by ensuring that all the taxpayers pay their taxes, and where there is criminal enterprises, they are properly dealt with in accordance with the law. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Karanja.
Yes, good afternoon. My name is Paul Matuku. I'm the Commissioner in charge of legal services at KRA. Under my docket, there is the defense of KRA cases in court and the Tax Appeals Tribunal. I also deal with the alternative dispute resolution, that is ADR, and the independent review of objections. Thank you.
So thank you very much. From the chats, I can see various comments. Thank you, Mr. Vimal Shah, for the comment on refunds. We're going to be dealing with it shortly. And the other questions that have been raised, I will raise them. We will deal with them during the plenary. So at this point, I would like to ask the team to project the KRA presentation. And we will commence with feedback on the consolidation of exporters. And this will be done by Madam Pamela Ahago. So if we could have this projected, please.
Who is sharing the document?
The KEPSA team.
Are we having challenges with sharing the document, Grace?
Yes, we have challenges sharing the document from our end. So we are trying to get the KEPSA team to share it from their end. We had shared with it the document with them. Probably as they begin, as we wait for the document, with your permission, Chair, we could speak into the issues, and maybe Madam Pamela could speak about the consolidation of exporters.
Go ahead, Pamela.
Thank you, CG. Thank you, Chairperson. Thank you, private sector represented in this meeting. I'm going to talk about consolidation of exports. There was a proposal from the private sector that the law should provide for consolidated exports, and that we should allow exporters to export in a consolidated manner. This is will be cost effective, where we allow small scale traders and others to consolidate cargo in one big container for exports. Yes, I want to share with you that in the law that exists, Exporters are allowed to export. You are allowed to declare your export entries and export. And this you consolidate in a container, and we have console-based CFS which provide these facilities for consolidation of small-scale traders at the moment, and we should take advantage of it. I also want to share with you that the law, international law, recognizes small-scale traders and the role that they play in international trade, and have a framework for allowing small-scale traders to consolidate their cargo for exports. I want to also tell you that this is also covered in international law under World Trade Organization and Trade Facilitation Agreement, and also under World Customs Organization guidelines. We have also, as KRA, developed a framework for small-scale traders at import level for small consolidated cargo, and we would advise that you take advantage of this and export your cargo through consolidation. And there was an issue also in this area of consolidation regarding first, how do we claim refunds when goods are consolidated? Under consolidation, you can use a master bill of lading that covers the full container. Then we can have small it's called house bill of lading. So this small house bill of lading will cover the small consignment that are there, whether it's 500 kilos, 100 kilos, or 200, it will cover them there. And in the small houses, it will also have the PIN number, and it will also have the details of the exporters. So yes, this is allowed, and we can sit together and use the framework which we've already developed to cover these small scale traders, and especially for exports, to encourage exports of different categories in our economy. So I just wanted to share with you that and to tell you this is okay, and we can ride on what we have already developed framework to cover this. Thank you.
So thank you very much, Madam Pamela. The next issue that we will be handling is on withholding VAT on tax refunds, and Mr. Hezron Ligari will be handling this. Hezron, please go ahead.
Thank you. Thank you, Chair. Thank you, CG. My name is Hezron Ligari. I'm Chief Manager, Refunds Unit, Domestic Taxes Department. I want to take you briefly through the issue of withholding VAT claims. And the main issue regarding VAT claims was the fact that taxpayers are not able to apply for claims covering period of 36 months, as was provided for legally. I'm happy to point out that this was a system issue which has since been resolved, and we are having taxpayers now applying for the 36 months.
Hezron, I assume that you've come to the end of that particular issue.
Yes, the issue on withholding tax was a brief one, just confirming that indeed the issue of 36 months was a system challenge which we have overcome, and we are now enabling taxpayers to apply.
So thank you very much. My apologies, we are still not able to project, but we'll share with you the document even after this, but we'll continue to try projecting now as we go ahead. So the next issue will be about the ledger balances migration from legacy, and my colleague, Madam Beatrice Gishohi, will be giving feedback on this. Beatrice. Beatrice. Beatrice, we can't hear you. Maybe I can ask Dr. Omar to step in.
Okay, Grace, yes, I can do that. Okay, on the ledger, I think Kasim also articulated a number of issues were raised. They revolved around the time limit in terms of the statutory limit. There was that we should therefore adhere to the law, more specifically the Tax Procedures Act. There was a suggestion on external auditors, and then there was the proposal that when the taxpayers give the information, then we should be able to settle the records in 30 days. So we just wanted to give a background, and incidentally, part of the KEPSA presentation involved the South Africa Revenue Authority. Indeed, it is one of the authorities that we've been looking at to be able to help us see how they may have done it. We have also looked at even some banks in terms of data and ledger cleaning. Now, what has happened so far? From the outset, I would like to say that this kind of an exercise is a joint effort. The tax authority has a responsibility. Of course, we have the ledger records and also the taxpayer. It really is a collaborative effort to ensure that the ledgers there is a shared understanding and the ledgers are correct. So what have we done so far? We started off the process by focusing on the debit balances, where the liabilities are, and taxpayers may not have given us the documentations on the payments, or they're not there in the legacy records. So we looked at the large taxpayers to begin with, the medium taxpayers, and other corporates, including the public sector and the like. So a total of 29,800 cases. And since we started, we actually sent out over 10,200 communication emails. That was the initial communication. And even with the 10,000, there was follow-up. So the responses received, and I think it's important to give these statistics, were 3,700, which is 36% response rate. And based on the documentation we received, part of the challenges we faced is that either there's no response, or when there is response, these are partial documentations. Of course, the issue of now the time limit is something I'll come back to. So of 10,000 communication, 1,300, almost 1,400 were cleaned because we got the needed documentation. And I also mentioned that we've got partial documentations. That makes it difficult. You can't settle the database if that is missing. Now, having said that, we are still continuing with the verification and making sure that the ledgers are correct. And having said that, we are together in these. I wanted to say that our interpretation of the law is that with respect to liabilities, debt liabilities, and credits, these are not limited by the law. And I think that is our interpretation. And also, one of the things that KEPSA might be able to do is to impress upon the members that we need the support in terms of coming together and getting the documentation. But for our part, we strive to make sure that the taxpayers are not inconvenienced, but make sure that the data is correct. We are also bound legally to ensure that the kind of update we do is also based on law. So I think we share that understanding. But our support is basically that we are continuing with the exercise. It is an exercise that requires attention to detail to ensure that everything is correctly done, that it requires the support of the taxpayers, and therefore the documentations need to come in. And with respect to the 5 years, ours is that with liabilities, debt liabilities and credit are not really bound by the limit of the 5 years. I think I wish to stop there.
Thank you, Commissioner. And now I'll invite Mr. Masudi to handle the issue of non-recognition of prior year tax overpayments. Welcome, Mr. Masudi.
Okay, thank you and good afternoon again. I'm responding on the issue of non-recognition of prior year tax overpayments. And the concern is that KRA does not have a mechanism of dealing with prior year overpayments. Actually, this has been addressed both in procedure and also in the law. So if you remember, the amendments that were introduced in about 3 years ago allowed for the treatment of overpayments in the system. And what we have now been able to do is that to allow the taxpayers to offset their overpayments in the ledger against their tax liabilities, the taxpayers has to apply for a refund of the overpayment, which has to go through the validation process. So upon approval, the taxpayer can request that the refund be utilized to pay a specific tax liability. So that is provided for. So you can choose to have the the overpayment be utilized to pay for outstanding taxes, tax liabilities, or you can choose to have it as a refund. So that has been resolved both in law and in procedure. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Mr. Masudi. And Susan, if you could kindly take us through the SMS rollout status.
Thank you, Grace, and thank you, Chair. Good afternoon, everybody. Now, the issue here was when we are expecting the ICMS maritime to be rolled out. I'm glad to bring to your attention that we've already rolled out the bulk cargo and motor vehicles, and it has been a success. Now, this is what we call the batch 2, which was deployed last Friday, that is 16th of October. And here we are looking at a couple of items that we've rolled out. We are looking at the valuation. We are looking at, sorry, I'm having a problem with the scrolling down. We are looking at valuation, risk, licensing, remissions. So you'll be able to do your remissions online now. The transits, transshipments, and refunds. Refunds has also been automated. So the customs refunds has been automated. So now we'll be having the importers having to do their refunds online as opposed to the current manual processes. And another process of importance, which I've not put up here, is a tea blending process, which I thought was of importance to mention in this meeting because of what had been raised. When we talk about tea blending, is when we can talk about society, maybe in some place in Kisii who are exporting some tea, or Meru, a farmer exporting tea. So they will be able to do this, and we have declarations which will zero down to the actual farmer who exported or to the society that exported, and they'll be able to do their refund. And as Commission had clearly explained on how the BL will fit into this. So for us to have a better understanding on this, we are encouraging the importers or the exporters or the KEPSA team to register for training through our KESRA e-platform. All the trainings are live, and you can get all this detailed information on how to do all this from the KESRA e-campus platform. Then in November this year, we will be having a deeper integration of ITAX. This is why we are expecting to be pushing all the imports, VAT and export data, so that we have one single point of truth and you're able to seamlessly do your returns and claim your refunds as appropriate. And then we have the portal where we have things like online auction and maybe allowing the importers, anybody who can use the system, to get in and launch their IDFs, do the auction and other activities that will be provided there. Then we will also be rolling out the temporary importation and advanced passenger information. For now, as far as refunds is concerned, this is what has been exported under drawback for the financial year 2019-2020. We have goods for a CIF value of 180 million, and this translates to import duty of about 4 million and excise duty of about 1.9 and VAT of 5.7. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Susan. So now we will go into EGMS, the issues that have been raised around the EGMS system. And Mr. Masudi will take us through this, and then he'll be followed by Mr. Ligare on VAT refund issues. And then we will have a stretch between issues 8 to 12, of which Mr. Masudi will respond to. So welcome, Mr. Masudi.
First of all, I would like to appreciate and acknowledge the sentiments expressed by the KEPSA members, that they appreciate that this system is a good system, and that there are opportunities to make it even more effective. And those sentiments are welcome, and we really appreciate them. So on the issues raised, relating to EGMS, as presented, we would like to respond as follows. On the desire for the industry to work with the government to fight illicit trade as strategic partners, we would like to say that as it is now, the government has a multi-agency committee against illicit trade, and the industry has engaged this committee even before, especially in relation to alcohol sector. And we welcome additional opportunities that may arise in strategic partnership in this area. So in this particular case, we say yes, we are available as a government to invite participation and get ideas from the private sector on how to deal with illicit trade. On the issue of the industry intending to participate in the implementation of EGMS, especially in relation to midwifing the contracting of the next service provider, would like to say that as we have worked before with the industry, we intend to continue working with the industry. In the previous rollout, prior to contracting, we discussed with the industry on proposed implementation, identified their challenges, and jointly agreed on solutions that should be deployed to minimize interruption to business and also improve outcomes. So we are saying that commitment still stands, and that on the issue of the next contractor for EGMS, I would like to let you know that the current contract is yet to expire. But when that time comes, of course, we will discuss implementation as where appropriate. On the issue of financial challenges in the implementation of EGMS, there is a proposal for waiver and refund of CAPEX and OPEX. And we would like to inform you that as it is now, under the law, you can actually expense the costs incurred in the implementation of EGMS. So the cost you incur in buying stamps or related costs can be expensed. So that shouldn't be a problem. On the issue of operational and administrative issues in EGMS implementation, as I mentioned before, we are working so closely with industry to ensure that there is minimal interruption to business and also reduce the costs to industry in relation to compliance. And as we are talking, we've had several engagements, especially with CAM. We have had several engagements with the Association of Water Bottlers. And in this particular case, the latest engagement is we've received a matrix of issues that Kenya Association of Manufacturers would like us to address. And we have held internal consultations on how to find solutions to these issues. And we have now scheduled a meeting so that we can go through the issues with CAM. Thank you.
Mr. Ligare?
Thank you. Regarding issues that affect claims, our position is that most claims which were affected by technical issues or system issues were withholding VAT claims. We appreciate, and it's regrettable that withholding regime was reintroduced last year, but 1 year down the line, we've not made good progress in that area. This was chiefly attributed to system challenge, and we have overcome the challenge and hope to, we've overcome the challenge and have managed to address a few claims whose position I've given in an appendix down there. If you can just rush down the presentation at the bottom of it, it will give you status of processing of withholding VAT claims. Otherwise, as maybe, yeah, that's the position of withholding VAT claims that we are having. We received 10 billion, we have processed 2 billion, and we are having 8 billion outstanding. Most of these claims were first-time lodgements which require audit according to our procedures and are at the TSOs for audits. But given the progress we've made in solving the system issue, we are optimistic that in the next 2 months, the tax service offices will furnish us with reports to help process and conclude the issues of those claims. I may just want to point out what Mr. Kasam pointed out. I may want to repeat what Mr. Kasam pointed out earlier regarding transparency, and I want to reiterate that we process claims on first in, first out basis. What may happen is that we have taxpayers who are in green channel, who have green channel status, and these are given priority in processing. As first-time claimants, our requirements are that the taxpayers are subjected to audit, and that may now bring the variation which taxpayers see that so and so has been paid, and me, I'm still waiting for my claim. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Ligare, and I'll welcome Mr. Masudi to give the responses for the next issues.
Okay, on credit adjustment vouchers, I would like to confirm that yes, we have been engaging with industry for some time on this issue. It is quite a sensitive issue, given that it has very high potential for fraud, and therefore we had to spend some sufficient time evaluating it, and so that when we finally put our fingers to it, we don't run risks on both sides. We understand the problem. We have actually carried out an analysis based on the accounts of a few taxpayers, just to understand the impact of allowing this to be rolled over as normal credit, not as segregated CAVs. And with that conclusion, we have now made a conclusion that yes, this can be allowed, but it has to be subjected to verification so as not to encourage fraud, because it's a high potential for fraud. And then we also realize that it will require system enhancements for this. I know that the proposal from the submission from KEPSA was if we can engage further on this, and we welcome further discussions on this, but where we have now reached is we have finalized legal review and impact analysis, and we have proposals on how we should proceed in this case. Thank you.
Mr. Masudi, the next issues, excise tax, is also a part of your response?
Yes, I know that when excise tax was introduced on petroleum products, we got also this request that in relation to people who use, persons who use kerosene for manufacturing of non-excisable goods, they did not have a mechanism that would allow them to offset the excise as an input. And I know the law was amended to allow for refunds. And on our side, there was some delays in system enhancements to allow for processing of these refunds. And we would like to report again that these system enhancements have been provided now for close to a year. And there have already 34 claims worth 103,617,000 that have been lodged in respect of excise tax refunds for industrial kerosene. Like Mr. Rigare has said, in relation to the procedure, a first-time applicant for refund is subjected to audit. So these payments will be made after the audit. Thank you very much.
Okay, I'll ask the team if you could please scroll down so that we can see the next issues, and these will be to deal with the relation management system, of which again Mr. Masudi will answer. That's issue number 10, and issue number 11, and issue number 12, 13, and 14. So Mr. Masudi, please just go ahead, because all those issues are part of your response.
Okay, on issue of relationship management laxity, this is a very serious issue to us because this is the core of the arrangement for relationship management with our stakeholders. And if this fails, then the authority would have failed. So we take this very seriously, and we had to evaluate why these kind of concerns are coming up. And we would like, first of all, to affirm that all our officers are required to comply with the service charter, which governs our relationship with taxpayers, and also the service level agreement, which defines in very clear terms the relationship with any other stakeholder in the process that handles taxpayers' issues. So we comply with that all the time. I think even to just emphasize, as part of performance management for this financial year, every officer is required to be evaluated on how and how efficiently they serve taxpayers by measuring their compliance with the service level agreements. The issue of handing over so as not to create gaps and maybe institutional memory in relation to the taxpayer spending issues, we would like to confirm that KRA operates a documented handing over process, which allows for a full handing over of all pending issues to the incoming persons. So we take this very seriously and we would like to affirm our position. But in the event that there is no satisfaction or taxpayers have issues in relation to service delivery, we have complaints and we have a call center where taxpayers can present their issues. And even that, we would like to assure you that complaints management in KRA is a very serious issue, and every complaint lodged can only exit through a resolution of the issue. Otherwise, it will be kept pending and follow-ups are made periodically. Thank you. On number 11, establishment of a dedicated help desk for micro and small taxpayers. Yes, we recognize that for quite some time, we dealt with very formal taxpayers, and the infrastructure that has been deployed is very clear for the medium and large taxpayers. And KRA has now decided to, in response to this and also as part of reform, in order to bring in into the tax bracket the micro and small so that they can make a contribution. So we have established an MSME office within our taxpayers division, headed by a chief manager, and that office currently sits at Samia Park on Mombasa Road. Then number 12, the issue of effective implementation of VAT on petroleum products. Again, we had discussed this with the PIEA, and we had agreed on how to proceed with this. But just before we released the guidelines, there was a new legal notice that was issued early this month in relation to electronic tax invoice issued for the year 2020, which has granted a period of 12 months for implementation. So our officers are currently being educated or sensitized on these laws, and the public sensitization will also follow. I would like, however, to reiterate that compliance with the VAT law as it is requires that specific records are kept, including tax invoices, so that even though these regulations are basically trying to bring in an automated environment within which data relating to transactions can be transmitted to KRA, so as now to reduce the time taken by taxpayers and also avoid the situation whereby we are bringing you to account for invoices of your suppliers. So the issue that you had raised about VA, this is now the solution. Okay, number 13, on private rulings. Yes, the law expects us to submit rulings within a specified period. We know that some of these rulings came late, but I would like to assure you that measures have been taken to ensure that these rulings are provided within time. Additional officers have been sent to the unit so as to process these documents on time. However, there are also reasons why some rulings delay. One is that some taxpayers submit information which is incomplete, and therefore there is the correspondences between the taxpayers and our officers delay the final decision in relation to the ruling, especially when information, additional information is sought and it is not forthcoming. On issue number 14, VAT automated assessments, I also know that we've been discussing this for quite some time. And I would just like to appeal to the industry that the purpose of VAA, as defined in the law, is to ensure that every refund that is submitted in form of an input tax is accurate and it is verifiable. Because as you may be aware, we in the past have identified the problem of missing traders, and a lot of money has been recovered through a program that was just verifying the authenticity of input invoices claimed. And it was discovered that some of them came from persons that we have now defined as missing traders. So this is a very noble idea. And as authority, we are working very hard to ensure that this process, there is efficiency and there is limited negative impact that it can have on the industry, so as we can have positive results on both sides. So just as a way, we would like to reiterate that the process for handling VA, as it were, is quite mild, and it is meant not to hurt the taxpayers. It is defined in such a way that you are given sufficient time to respond. So, for example, when an inconsistency is identified, you are given some days to respond, and a follow-up is again sent to you after about 2 weeks. It is only after that period that an assessment is raised on outstanding mismatched invoices upon lapse of that period of consultation. And also after that, you are still allowed to object to the assessment as provided for under the law. So in summary, I would just like to let you know that for the last few months, we have seen a significant improvement in the accuracy of declarations from taxpayers following the implementation of VA, and that accuracy has the mismatch. The matched invoices have improved from 19% to 63%. So that is a very big improvement in compliance from your side, and we are really grateful for the effort that the taxpayers are making in ensuring that they make correct declarations to the authority. So this positive change in taxpayer compliance behavior, we believe, will eventually lead to significant reduction in compliance costs for all the taxpayers and also for KRA. Then number, did you tell me to end there, Grace?
You have one more, number 16. Maybe you can deal with waivers, and then Madam Susan can deal with the issue of VAT. So you could just respond on the waivers, and then we finish with number 15. So you could jump to number 16.
Okay. On the number 16 was waiver of penalties and interest, and the concern from the industry here is that we are denying them refunds, or we are denying waiver of penalties and interest in the event that there are outstanding taxes. So we would just like to inform you that this is not an administrative issue. It is actually a legal issue, which is premised on the understanding that interest, waiver of penalties and interest are granted to taxpayers that have already complied with the law. So this is an item that is, remember that waiver of penalties and interest is based on mitigating circumstances. And one of the issues that is considered when waiving penalties and interest is taxpayers' compliance. It is actually our first and foremost important consideration, which is also anchored in the law. So we would like to appeal to taxpayers that since this is a legal issue, they should also utilize this opportunity to ensure that they address any outstanding tax issues in their ledger. So in this particular case, we would like to let you know that this is anchored in the law, and we would like to help in any way in ensuring that that is complied with. Thank you very much, Grace.
Thank you very much, Mr. Masudi, and I'll welcome Madam Susan to just deal with our very last issue on VAT on third-party charges.
Thank you once again, Grace. This issue raised here, number 15, seemed to be more of a systemic issue, where we have the quota system recognizing the clearing agent instead of recognizing the importer as the actual payer of the VAT. So, and this leads, as a result of this, the importer have difficulties in claiming VAT incurred. So on our part, what we've done is that we've constituted a technical team, and this was done between KRA and KPA, and who came up with a framework on how we'll be sharing data of the importer and or the consignee, so that we can allow the importer to be able to claim their VAT as appropriate. So with this, we'll require to have some system enhancement and further integration to allow data sharing for the PIN as well as for the transaction, because everything that goes to KPA and requires a VAT is related to a declaration. So and the importer really is the same as the one on the declaration will be the same that will be appearing on the KPA document. But in the meantime, what has happened is that there's a ruling that was made under Section 65 of TPA, and KPA was advised to be charging the services directly to the importers. So to fully implement this, there's a planned tripartite meeting between KRA, KPA, and the clearing agents to see how we are going to do the full implementation of this, so that we can fully deal with this challenge that has been presented. I submit. Thank you.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of our reaction to the proposals from the private sector. As we've gone along, I think that the issues that have been raised in the chat, some of them have been dealt with, and some we are responding online as we continue with the session. But before we move on, I'm informed by Madam Martha Cheruto that there are some members of the KEPSA board who've joined, and she would like to introduce them. So Martha, I'll just hand over to you briefly before we continue. Meanwhile, I would also like to request, if you have more questions, please put them in the chat so that we'll come back and answer these. Thank you.
Thank you, Grace. Allow me to recognize we've had our leaders join us. I'm not sure they'll be able to speak, but allow me to recognize Dr. Vimal Shah, who's our trustee at KEPSA. We also have Mr. Auni Baiji, who's our chairman for the Transport Sector Board. We have Ms. Susan Maingi, she's our vice chair for the Industrialization Sector Board. We have Mr. Hilary Onami, also on board. He's the chair of the Devolution Sector Board. We have Mr. Arun Devani. He is one of our trustees at KEPSA. And also we have Mr. Julius Riumbi. He's one of our former leadership at the Energy Sector Board and still a member of the Energy Sector Board. And we also have Ms. Farida Abbas, who is the CEO of the British Chamber of Commerce and Industry. Allow me, I thought it's important to just inform the CG of the presence of our leadership that are there. So we recognize the ones that we've seen. For any leader that we've not mentioned, please just introduce yourself if possible. Thank you very much, Grace.
So thank you very much for the introductions, and we are pleased to have the leadership of the KEPSA board with us. We are still waiting for questions, but this is a rare occurrence at KRA when we get a compliment of this nature, and I would like to read it out. So Mr. Shah, specifically for Mr. Bharat Shah, and he says that VAT refunds have now caught up, and I commend the Commissioner General and his team. Thank you very much, Mr. Shah. We've been working with you on this journey of having this dialogue to improve the processes that we have. I think the issues that you've raised on withholding certificates and CAV credit adjustments have been dealt with. And we will also be sharing the document with the team if you need further interaction. Mr. Charles Mukunu of PKF Kenya is asking, when is the new tax rate? This is 25% for resident companies effective, which is the first tier of income to enjoy this rate. And I'll be asking Mr. Masudi if he could deal with that question. So we are still waiting for more questions, and maybe Mr. Masudi could deal with that question.
Thank you. I think this is arising from the amendment to the Income Tax Act, when the rate was reduced from 30% to 25% on the 25th of April this year. And there has arisen a concern about so who is supposed to pay the 25% and how do we treat the effective date on this. I know that we communicated in a public notice issues relating to an advisory on the effectiveness of the tax on PAYE. And we are also aware that persons whose accounting periods ended in April this year are due to file their returns. And we have planned to issue a public notice this week in relation to an advisory to the public on this. But just for your consumption is that persons whose accounting periods terminated earlier than the date of accounting, I mean the date of publication of the amendment of the law, will still pay their taxes based on the old rate. So the new rate will only affect persons whose years of, whose tax accounting periods terminated past the accounting date. So that advisory is due for publication. Thank you.
Thank you very much. We have a question, I think, from...
Please, can I make just one comment on that? Because there's a lot of confusion in the private sector. I think, there have been mixed messages on this since April. And, some people may have used the incorrect date because they were not getting the right aspect. So I think one thing is, while the public notice is being issued, it might be good for the private sector tax team, the KEPSA tax team and the KRA, the technical team to just look at it and see that if, there are issues around using the wrong rate, how can that be addressed so people can top up or whatever without incurring penalties? Because, if you look at April, we are now in October, there's been a long, delay in getting that clarification. So, I would be available. Kexton also has my number. And, my team at KEPSA on the tax team, we can quickly, whenever call this week or early next week, just to address that issue.
Okay, thank you, Ashif. So that's noted. I think that should go into part of our action points and quick wins from this meeting. I see a question from Mr. Mushai Kunyiha, and it will be followed by Madam Wanjiku Manyara. Please go ahead, Mr. Mushai.
All right, thank you very much, Grace. Just and thank you again to the KRA team for your responses and openness in dealing with these things. This is the way I think we continue working like this. It helps everyone. I just wanted to emphasize two issues on the VAA and the waivers so that we are talking on the same page. I think that the main issue that private sector is having on VAA is where we are being asked to confirm the payment of VAT by another party. Because as a taxpayer, if I get an invoice from a company that has a PIN number and I pay them and pay the VAT, whether they pay their VAT starts becoming a problem. And I think although we do understand the issue said about the missing traders and so on, but it becomes a problem for me if I have to call, say, Ashif and say, Ashif, have you paid VAT on my invoice? Because what is happening sometimes is that your suppliers are many small ones. You know, they are not, it's not as important. If it is if I'm an important customer to them, they will reply and give me details and so on. But if I am one among 1,000, say it's I don't know what example I'll give, like a supermarket or something, they are selling to a lot of people, and I just bought a little bit. Getting them to come back to me becomes very difficult. So that's the aspect I think that is a little bit troublesome, especially for smaller manufacturers, smaller businesses as well. Sometimes it's also the reverse. I find I'm trying to call a big company to ask them about their VAT. The accountant tells me, kwani unafikiri hatulipi? You know, so it becomes a problem for me. So those are some of the challenges there. And I think, again, on the waivers, I think the issue around the waivers was back to what Ashif had mentioned was the ledger, how clean the ledger is and how we can update the ledger to be current. So that we are finding some people have some items on their ledger which are disputed or going through review and that kind of thing. But because of that, you're being you can't get your tax clearance certificate. So it's not that you're necessarily a bad taxpayer, it's just that you have an issue on something else that is being reviewed. And a lot of the times it could be just a small thing. It is just, I paid this payment, it was not reflected on the system, there was a system error. So that conversation is ongoing, but you're kind of stuck because of that. So that's why they were talking about that delinking and trying to see maybe there should be a level for things under review, under your ledger, which are under review. Then we know that that is not, we are still talking. We are engaging with the KRA, we are discussing the issue, and that should not stop us having tax clearance or moving forward. Those are just my 2 comments on that. Thanks.
So thank you very much. I think that's well taken, and maybe I would be asking Mr. Masudi to be preparing to give an answer to that. Meanwhile, I'll ask Madam Wanjiku if you could go ahead with the 2 questions that you had.
Thank you very much, and very impressive updates and submissions from KRA. These are delightful. Thank you, Mr. Masudi. With regard to the ETR, as you're aware, the proposal that we've been making is actually to ensure that we simplify or help KRA simplify the collection of VAT, and also to ensure that there's compliance, because we are all for compliance. But you know, our issues are unique because of, and we've mentioned this earlier, because of the kind of transactions that happened at our forecourt. And we're still hoping that we'll be able to get the guidelines that we spoke about in terms of the alternative, even as we pursue the position paper that we have submitted to Treasury, so that the VAT margin is taxed at the wholesale level because of the uniqueness of our sector. With regard to the alternative, we as industry are happy to actually have technology adopted for the implementation of the administrative process. But also our position is that I think it's important that KRA, or we think that it's important that KRA does the necessary, what I can say, comparisons or research or benchmarking with other jurisdictions that have already introduced this technology. And I think in East Africa, we already have, if I'm not wrong, Tanzania. And this is just to ensure that we avoid any pitfalls that have been experienced by other countries that have tried this technology as a solution for the current challenges that we are undergoing. So looking at the pre-existing systems, I think it's important for KERA as a first step to ensure that there is a proper groundwork that is done, proper stakeholder consultation, and also to just get this comparative study to ensure that we look at the pros and cons in advance so that we don't spend money and then try to overcome the hitches which will perhaps compound an already existing challenge. And we think that it's important that we're able to outline all the benefits together. We have a very good engagement, structured engagement with yourselves. We look at the disadvantages, the advantages, and then we agree as to whether or disagree as to whether or come to an understanding or an agreement as to whether this investment would be worthwhile, bearing in mind what the cost implications would be. The two questions that we had have kind of been answered by the submissions that have been made by the CG, and they're delightful. We just hope that in terms of the compliance, or rather the interventions that you have proposed to look at how to mitigate against the escalation of illicit trade will be implemented as soon as possible. As you're aware, and this has been in the public domain, there's a lot of illicit trade on LPG on account of deceit on the declaration at the border, where one IDF form is used to clear multiple tankers that are carrying LPG. And the problem with this is, apart from tax evasion or cheating, it also has an issue regarding specifications, because wherever the gas is coming from, that LPG is used for industrial, not for domestic, and therefore it doesn't have the safety feature called McCaptain, which enables household users to establish when there is a leak. And this gas is also ending up in illegal facilities that are actually cheating consumers, not just of the quality, but also on the pricing, which of course creates an unlevel playing field, because then they haven't invested in the vessel called the cylinder. The other one, and we've discussed this, is also on base oils and additives importance. I think it's important for KERA to ensure or to get a demand of proof as per the EAC requirement for all those who are importing, so that we eliminate unfair competition. So thank you very much for the opportunity, and I must commend KERA for being very courageous to work with all sectors and to come to an agreement that we may not have all the solutions, but as long as there's commitment to dialogue, then 80% of the problems are already solved. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much. I think those will be the very last questions. I want to ask Mr. CG?
Maybe Grace, I may wish to follow up on that issue by Wanjiko about the LPG, and I believe Commissioner Saindimu is here to just shed some light in that area and what it is that we are doing to ensure that we eliminate that unfair competition. But there is some understanding required in that area of LPG, because right now we are having sector-based interventions in that area to deal with those challenges. But I would like Saindimu to shed some light to the participants on what exactly are the issues and what it is that we are doing about it.
Thank you, CG, and thank you, Wanjiko. This is a sector that we've given a lot of attention because, for one, we know that health is very important, and safety of the people is paramount. Of course, you've seen in the media that there's been a lot of negative reports on LPG and border entry of LPG through the border of Namanga. We've really done a lot in terms of assessing entry of LPG through the borders. And just to give a snapshot of analysis is that for the past 2 years, 76% of LPG comes through Mombasa, the port of Mombasa. And about 21 to 22% comes through the border of Namanga. And we've actually worked through the multi-agencies, including ERC, now the EPRA, KRA, KEBS, and also the police, to ensure that all the consignments that come through the border are recorded. All the consignments that we've actually got as complaints from outside, we've been able to subject through our systems, and we've been able to identify some areas for investigations. However, of course, as you're also aware that there are no taxes on importation of LPG, and we've been allowing people to import through bulk entries, as it was done as an agreement of EAC. Having received this complaint severally, the KRA team has actually suspended the use of bulk entries. So each and every truck that now comes through the border has to come with individual entry. That means one IDF, one entry. Thank you, CG, and thank you, Wanjiko.
Mr. CG, I think it would be great, and thank you very much for that presentation, Mr. Terra. I think it would be fantastic for us to engage further on this, and we've done that before, so that then we can also avail some additional information, and we can come to a partnership where, since we are working for the same cause, then be as transparent as possible, and we will ease not only your work, but also ensure that Wanjiko is not exposed to illicit trade, and especially on LPG, because it really is the antidote for eliminating non-communicable diseases.
CG, if I may add my voice.
CG, you're muted.
Pamela, you can comment, but we'd like to close that with what Wanjiko has offered, further engagement in that area, given the many issues ahead of us. And Dr. Saindimo will get in touch with Wanjiko, and together we work with those stakeholders in the sector. We will deal with this problem, and whatever the issue is, you can rest assured we will deal with it.
So thank you, CG. I think the only issue now pending was the BAA issue that was raised on the floor, but I think we will take that as feedback from the session. And Mr. Desai, the issue on ETR rollout as well, maybe Masudi, you could just mention that, and then we will close this session there due to time. We are now approaching 4:30, and we had said we'll finish by 4:40. So if I could ask Mr. Masudi maybe just to give a comment on the rollout of ETRs, and then we will get into the closing sessions.
Maybe, Grace, before Masudi takes over, I know KEPSA would like to have further engagement on these technical issues through a small team, which I'm sure you will constitute, so that we can get deeper into these issues through our technical teams, so that we can then have an understanding of what has been resolved and what is still outstanding, and if it is outstanding, what issue is outstanding, and then we agree on a common approach and probably a plan on how to resolve those issues. But Masudi, go ahead.
Thank you, CG. Basically, I think this conversation is quite interesting, and the feedback we are getting from our stakeholders is also positive. There is one issue that has been raised, and I think it is good for us to mention it, the issue of waivers of interest and penalties being affected by ledger issues. And I think this is a conversation that we need to have with our taxpayers, that the ledger is yours. The ledger is a taxpayer's ledger. and the correctness of the information therein should be of concern to the taxpayers, just as you always anticipate a bank statement and you scrutinize it to ensure that the entries in your bank statement are correct. So it should be for the taxpayers' ledger. We also would like to invite taxpayers and encourage them to always check and they should take concern with their ledgers and ensure that if there are any issues therein, they should seek to have those issues resolved before any processes relating to their tax compliance are blocked or are affected by that ledger. And I think going by the interactions we've had with taxpayers before, we are seeing some positive responses from taxpayers in addressing their ledgers, and a lot of debt which was held in the system, which was wrong, has been removed in some of the cases. On VA again, I think this is another conversation which needs to be looked at from a perspective of tax compliance, which we need to appreciate that in any economy, the responsibility of paying taxes rests with us, and it's also our responsibility to ensure that the persons who trade with us are tax compliant. For the commissioner or commissioner general, you need to appreciate that every claim of input taxes is a refund because you are saying this was paid when you are purchasing the goods, and therefore you would like to allocate yourself that as a refund through a deduction. And remember that the central principle of refund is you can only refund what was received. You cannot refund any amount not received. And it is a general principle. What we can only discuss going forward, which we encourage, is how can we make this process efficient? How can we reduce these mistakes so that you do not run into these kind of problems? And so far you can see there's an improvement in matching the invoices from 19% to 63%. ETR, I think Wanjiku has submitted very well, and the issues she has submitted, we are handling them, and maybe we can take them offline for now, because these are issues raised by under PIEA. And I think given the discussions we have already held with her, these are things that we think we can resolve. Thank you very much.
Okay, so thank you very much. CG, we've noted the technical teams, and that is going into our action points. Technical teams with PIA, the technical team meeting with the Public Finance Board. From the chat, I see a request for a meeting on CGT and real estate sector. So my team and I will be reaching out to the KEPSA team to organize for follow-up meetings on the issues that have been raised. And as we come to the end, and as I welcome Martha to give closing remarks and the CG, I would just like to point out a few issues, things you should look out for in the coming months. So we'll be having a board round table on the 3rd of November, and we're looking forward to host the board members of the business member organization to meet our board and to discuss on issues to do with taxation. So would like to ask you to save that date. Would also like to ask you to save the date of the 4th and 5th, when we will have our annual tax summit in November, and we'll be discussing emerging issues in taxation during those 2 days. In the chat, we've given you our response mechanism. If you have an issue on complaints, we've given the email cic@kra.go.ke. If you have a stakeholder engagement issue, we've given the email stakeholder.engagement@kra.go.ke. Finally, I just want to thank all the business member organizations for adhering to our scheduled technical meetings and commissioner roundtable meetings, and also participating in the CG's roundtable. So at this point, I would like to welcome Martha, if we could get into the closing session. Welcome, Martha.
Thank you, Grace. Thank you, everyone, for today. And thank you, CG Gidimburu, for today. But from our end, allow me to call in our PPD specialist, Patrick Maingi, because he's at the center of our public policy discussions. And I wish him to make the closing remarks. Then we can hand over to Gidimburu. But just maybe as he says that, we'll take up the action plans and the way forward, get the dates with the team, and make sure that we continue with the discussion. So from my side, and also from our leadership, is just to say asante sana and looking forward to engaging more. So Patrick, over to you.
Thank you very much, Martha, for that moment. I don't have much to say. I want to thank CG Gide and your team for this. And because I respect the protocols of this, I wanted to allow one of the captains of industry to make the comment, the closing remarks, which we had discussed before. So, Vimasha, if you may have the floor on my behalf.
Thank you, Patrick. Bwana CG, how are you? All the commissioners, all KRA, all private sector colleagues. I think this is the spirit of the day. This is what we need all the time, because I think dialogue can end all the issues. And I think rather than start doing it through correspondence and through courts and all that stuff, this is probably the best way so that we understand where you're coming from. I think the intentions are very clear. We in private sector are very clear. We want to be fully compliant. We want to make sure that everything is paid back. And I think that's important. At the same time, we need to make sure that what is due, what is to be paid is paid, what is to be refunded is refunded. And I think that's also what you want. So this helps us in understanding each other much better. And I think clarity also is brought about, because a lot of times technical issues are being brought up, and there's a technical issue. It's easy to repudiate a claim and say not allowed, not possible. But this is the best way. And I think dialogue, in the end, Governor Mburu, I think you when you came in, I think we had a session with you. You actually said we're going to make a difference. You are making a difference. However, what I would suggest is, as a way forward, let's have a clearinghouse where you have a week of this sort of discussion, one-to-one, and sorting out issues for each customer, each client, and killing the issue. So I think that way we would become your ambassadors and say, fine, this is the best way to do it. So I guess that's important. And of course, we need to then work and talk to Treasury together to say, this is the right thing for putting liquidity into the market. I think the issue on VAT is very clear. Whatever refunds we need to be able to pay that every time and have that current. So there's no backlogs anyway. Apart from that, I think we're on the way to make Kenya more industrialized, more manufacturing, and the private sector is always available. And I think this new media post-COVID or during COVID has taught us that it is far more easier to reach each other. So I think CG, the whole team, I think we've seen the reformation, the transformation at KRA. Let's keep it up and let's become far more aggressive on getting things done. And I think this is where we cannot wait for next year or the budget, a few years later. I think it'll be time now. And the big four agenda needs to be pushed very fast. So well done and keep it up. I think Ashif, also the team from private sector, well done for keeping the dialogue going, and let it continue. Thank you.
Thank you, Vimal. We push now to KRA. Just as I go, the Commissioner and your team, we thank you. My name is Patrick Maingi. I'm the PPT manager at KEPSA, linking the private sector and the public sector. Thank you very much. Over to you, Commissioner.
Thank you, Patrick. Thank you, Mr. Vimal. And now I would like to welcome the Commissioner General, Mr. Gidimburu, to give his closing remarks. Welcome, CG.
So I want to thank all the members. Thank you, Vimal and Patrick and Martha, Ashif, and all the members of KEPSA. First, I want to appreciate this engagement. And like Vimal has noted, once we agree to dialogue on issues, then we are able to get a solution together. It is possible to sit back here and begin writing letters and finding reasons not to do things. But I think if we dialogue and we meet like this and raise our issues openly, discuss them, we get our teams work together, it is possible to find solutions to all our issues. The issue of refunds, adequacy of funding is one that the industry has to continue agitating. On our part, we commit to continue expediting the processing of those refunds and settling those that are due. Any refund that is not due, I know we have been disallowing and rejecting, but we are looking at ways of discouraging those refunds that are not due that are normally fraudulently launched. And I believe in the coming days, we will get down to those small group of people who are engaging in this kind of fraudulent refunds, and we will deal with them very decisively so that they don't spoil the party for all of us. We want a genuine business doing genuine business, and which has refunds that are owed to them. We must expedite, we must refund those claims subject to the limitations of funding. Those who are trying to cash in terms of our processes, I'm sure those are the ones we shall try to work together to eliminate. In terms of trade facilitation, we have a very robust mechanism of launching or rather providing our information to us, or even complaining, or even seeking to engage us through our marketing and communication, through our complaints management. We would like to receive all those issues. And once they are logged in, we are willing and able, and we are ready to resolve them or to do the best that we can under the circumstances. So let no business sit back there and continue suffering. Any issue, my email is there, the email of all our staff who are concerned in receiving this kind of information. I whistle, which I think, Ashif, you noted, there can be misuse of it, but we are taking care of that, so that then disgruntled people do not come in and launch information that is not properly supported. So our teams are handling that. We should not worry about that. We have mechanisms of validating that information before we use it. So I believe members of the private sector, we are going to work together. We will continue achieving the best that we can in our environment. Most importantly is that dialogue is a way of the future. Not sitting back and complaining, not going to the media to complain. It is just coming to us and we discuss these things. If the people, my staff, do not listen to you, then I'm here. I will also, you put an email to me, I will put it to them, I will ask for a response on your behalf, and then we will reach out to you so that then we are responsive enough. So for me, I would like to thank all of you for this very, very useful engagement, very, very fruitful indeed. We believe that moving forward, that small team that we have talked about should get engaged immediately, especially before Masudi, you issue the public notice you are talking about. If you can quickly have a look at that together and agree on it, take the views of the private sector in it, so that then we work together through this journey. And by dialoguing, we reduce our points of differences. So I want to thank all of you, and I'm looking forward to our future engagements. Any issues that are still outstanding, I believe we will continue reviewing them on a monthly basis with my staff, and even getting in touch with the management of KEPSA, so that then we keep a tab on these issues, so that nothing is left outstanding far too long. Thank you very much for being here, and thank you for your participation. Thank you for your contribution. Thank you for your positive criticism, which is very much healthy, and thank you for the ideas that you've given unto us. I want to take this opportunity to thank all of you, and hope that then we can continue this engagement into the future. Grace, what is next?
Thank you so much, CG. I think this is just to close and say thank you to everyone, and let you know that the Commissioner Roundtable will come up again next quarter. I encourage everyone to use the frameworks that we have in terms of the technical committee meetings and the commissioner meetings before we come to the Commissioner General's Roundtable, and we will be announcing the dates in the coming quarter. So other than that, CG, then we are, everyone is free to leave at their own pleasure.
Thank you very much. See you next time.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Pay your
Thank
taxes.
you. Bye-bye. Thank you.
Thank you very much, CG. We shall be continue to pay.
Yeah,
We are CG. You can be rest assured of that.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Maybe what is in 2020, clear up in 2020, so we don't have to go for next quarter.
No problem. Pay your taxes, be mad.
Yes.
Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Bye-bye
Bye.
for now. Okay.
Great. Thank you very much. Have a good evening, Grace, for everything. Grace, Wandera, awesome. Sante.
Bye-bye, commissioners and CG and KEPSA team.
I'm looking forward to more taxes.
Yeah, we pay taxes.
Enable us more.
Oh, I will facilitate. I will facilitate.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you very much.
Okay, bye.